Alright, so last video I started talking about some arcane nonsense related to words and thinking logically, restructuring the way that I think to be more logical. And that's opened up a whole can of worms based on things people have recommended me. A couple different philosophers who I think have focused on words and their meaning, and then also philosophers who think about thought. Yeah, so that's all cool, but I don't want to get in a trap of like meta thinking where it's like all meta and you're just thinking about your thoughts over and over again and you're not ever doing anything. A couple people pointed that out too, like, bro, just stop thinking so much, just put the fries in the bag, bro. The thought terminating cliche kind of thing, but they somewhat have a point. You don't want to just sit around thinking about thinking all day. There's a couple problems that have come up, and the biggest one I have right now is it seems to be I have an abundance of information. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff I'm really interested in looking into. A couple different philosophers, and then a bunch of people are throwing around the Less Wrong forum, and there's a book produced by the guy who kind of started Less Wrong, which is like a definitive guide on how to think better. And I went and I checked out Less Wrong, and to me it seems like a bunch of really brilliant people, but there's tons of information. Like, so there's so many different philosophers. Also, my very good friend recommended this, like, objectivism and understanding philosophy from first principles, and just going deep and understanding all that. And it's like there's such an enormous amount of information to absorb, and for some reason I have like an impatience. I just like want to absorb it all and just understand everything, but it takes like a long time, and I've realized I'm a little bit blind to things taking a long time. Like, it's kind of hard to conceptualize. Maybe we're not built for long-term goals or something, but it's hard to imagine that maybe I'm already on the best trajectory for learning, and that it just takes like days and days and days of reading. But yeah, I don't know. It's kind of hard for me to accept that to get good at philosophy and math and logic from first principles so I can start doing computer science again is like something that I can't do within like 2 days, you know? It's going to take like months to restructure the way that I think. And yeah, so thinking about long-term plans, I can do it. It's just, it doesn't feel intuitive somehow. I don't know. Like, I feel like I'm always looking for some in-the-moment quick fix solution that'll just like get me to a perfect level of understanding, which is not how things work. Like, understanding takes a long time. And then there's this feeling I was talking about last time where someone described it really well. It's like Gears level understanding versus like black box level understanding, where you're walking around in the modern world and there's tons of things, like this lamp, for instance, where you kind of have like just an intuitive understanding. I hit the button, it's like now I can see. And there's tons of things like that. Like this car, I get in and I press these buttons and then I can move faster. And same with the internet. Like, I boot up my computer and then there's this screen that shows me this. And that's very different from understanding something at the Gears level where you like understand all the way down how everything works. And it's kind of, I guess it's like I like to think of it as like a nice little black box barrier that prevents you from going insane, because if you suddenly just understood how everything around you works all the way down to like quantum physics, you can't like absorb the amount of, I mean, maybe you can. Maybe if you're like a cracked, you've been researching, you have a PhD in like 20 things, you've been just doing it for your whole life, you could probably get close to understanding almost everything around you in finite detail. But they're just, I don't even know about that, because having like abstraction in our world on top of our inventions and stuff there's just so many fields now. Like, even if you're really insanely smart in terms of all the physical world and physics and everything, then there's like art and like emotional connection and spirituality. There's like things that are kind of in other directions that are also kind of black boxed. Like, someone in my last comment section was saying for him the black box is like the brain, and he's like, oh, my brain just thinks things. And yeah, so that was a great way to articulate what I was feeling last time, how sometimes something opens up to you, and sometimes you can't get it to open, if that makes sense. It's like I look at sometimes I'm reading a book, right? And like I went to the library a few days ago and I was looking at our computer science section, and I got interested in like software engineering management. I thought like, oh, I used to think this field is dumb, but I don't know, maybe there's something to it. And I got some of the book, but for some reason, sometimes when I'm reading a book, I have this tendency to think, oh, this book is like dumb. I know better than this book. I'm smarter than the author of this book. They're just spitting nonsense here, which I know at an intellectual level is completely false, because this person is much older than me. They're much wiser. They've seen much more of the world. And taking time to put like your ideas into writing means that the ideas are much more refined in general, as opposed to just off the cuff speaking, because you have like all these editorial processes and you can go over multiple times and clarify meaning, and it's very like dense. All the information in the book is very specifically architected to convey if you're a good writer. And for anyone publishing like academic work, I mean, maybe not everyone, but there's a very high chance that this person is much smarter than me, especially if it's a field that I don't really know well. But I have this tendency to be like, oh, it's wrong. This is garbage. And so I was talking to my friend about that, and he said, yeah, it's if you're young, that's a very normal thing to do, like to think you know better. It's just frustrating for me because like I know that I'm wrong, but I can't open my mind to certain books and concepts yet. I can't see, like, the Gears level interpretation of those things is too complicated and fine-grained that I'm looking at it as like a black box. Like, sometimes you can't look into the black box. It's like it takes some kind of concerted special effort to see into things and to see into all the complexity underneath them. Sometimes you're just like, oh, that's just how that works. I can't really be bothered to know deeper than that. Or it's not even like can't be bothered. It's like I know there's tons of abstraction and thought and like super complex chains of reasoning behind certain ideas, and I just disbelieve it. I'm like, nah, they just came up with that randomly. That's not a real complex field with actual engineering in it. That's just like some guesses by some people without reasoning. And I know it's not true, but like the part of my brain that knows it's not true is not the part that matters. It's not like the believing part of the brain. It's like the understanding part of the brain, if that makes sense. But yeah, it's I guess these are just the basic problems of academic induced insanity, maybe. I don't know. I'm starting to get the appeal of academia and just being a person who understands stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's dangerous to go too meta for sure. You don't want to just be someone who's like thinking. There's a couple of people also pointed out in the comments, like, for some reason I have this very harsh view of the way that I currently think. And I'm very critical. I don't know exactly why. I should investigate that. But the way I phrase a lot of the things is like the way I currently think is broken and unoptimal. And I need a better way to think, rather than phrasing things like I'm working towards a different way of looking at the world, like slowly but surely. And I don't know, I just have this kind of impatience. Like everything has to be crystallized and figured out ASAP. And then I can start doing stuff. And yeah, it's a kind of weird mentality to have. I'm not exactly sure why I have it. And another manifestation of that is like looking at books and being like, I know this book is just chock full of really incredible observations about the patterns in the world, but I'm not. My mentor said, think about it as not ready yet, rather than my thought process is like, there's this dissonance between knowing that I should be able to understand this and not understanding it. I'm just not ready to absorb this information yet. And yeah, I kind of, if you look at the world in a certain way, there's like tons and tons of layers of these patterns, and they all kind of build on each other. And there are some that are so incredibly like complex and beneath the surface. They're like 10 levels down. And I guess trying to jump that far forward doesn't really work, and you have to build up like an understanding. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I just want this channel to be like a journey of me trying to become better at understanding things. I think there was one or two people that are like, bro, just code, just stop thinking about this meta thinking stuff. But then a bunch of other people were like, yeah, you should be thinking about this meta thinking stuff. And like less wrong in that community, like understanding biases and stuff, and understanding the way that I think seems quite important. But I don't know. I know it's also important to not be like a logic bro, and that was a comment I kept seeing is like, that seems like the fastest way to depression, like to logically analyze everything and like try to put it all into implication and whatnot. And I realized that. I think I was talking to my dad about this briefly at one point, like using instead of abduction, using induction, or yeah, like instead of just like randomly taking a big chunk guess at something and inferring a bunch of things, like try to build up a chain of reasoning. And what my dad said is like, yeah, I would buy that that's like a really very solid strategy, but also like if you're talking to like your grandmother, she's not like using inductive reasoning, you know, and there are a lot of people in your life, a lot of people who kind of operate on like rote pattern recognition rather than like building logical chains of understanding to make decisions in the world. And the point is like it's very noble and very, well, noble's maybe not the right word. It's a good idea to try to logically understand the world. It'll probably be a great academic tool to have that logical thinking, but don't like map that onto your social life, because not everyone is trying to operate in the same way that you are. And don't feel superior because your thinking is somehow a better, sharper tool than other people's thinking. Like maybe there are different ways to experience the world. There's no like real correct way, and you gotta be careful not to dismiss other people's ideas, even if they seem like completely diluted to you, and like, oh, that's just completely illogical, emotional nonsense. You know, you really don't want to act like that. But maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's a completely obvious not doctrine, but what's the word? Like piece of advice, commandment, I don't know exactly, but yeah, a piece of advice related to rationalism and less wrong is just like, don't be an asshole about your logical brain, the way you're thinking about the world, and don't try to apply it to everything, because some things are just a little bit too complicated. But yeah, I'm thinking of like maybe eventually reading some stuff on like objectivism and the less wrong community and different philosophies. Not that I'm gonna become a philosophy major or anything, but I have like some time before school starts again, and I feel like if I can convert from kind of a rote memorization of math to intuitive first principles understanding of math, then I'll have a much better time as a math major, because I felt like I was memorizing big chunks of trivia that were disconnected. Whereas if I could apply those concepts and see those patterns in action, it would help me be just more interested in it. And yeah, I think it would really help me actually apply myself to this degree. And yeah, the current plan, for those asking, is still to go back for math. I can take cross-listed computer science and other classes like that. I think it's just, yeah, I'm more interested in math than I am in computer science, just because I know a guy with a bunch of computer science textbooks that I can read, and he understands operating systems and stuff. I mean, it's probably important to also understand first principles computer science things, but I get the hunch that they're a little easier to learn on your own than math concepts are on your own. I don't know why. It just seems like it would be easier to like be, yeah, I don't know. Another whole thing with this is in information consumption. This video is all over the place. I have absolutely no plot. I'm just completely rambling. I should get better at structuring and writing and stuff too. I think that would make my videos more coherent, but also it's like I'm not reading a script. Maybe it's more relatable and more natural. I don't know. Trade-offs to everything. Everything's engineering. Anyway, just thinking about things more, like information consumption. I always am trying to do that more, and it's not the bottleneck is what I've realized now. Like, I have all these different recommendations of people to read, all these different books that I currently have that I could read, and then all these forums with really smart people, and then also like my YouTube comments I feel like are an intoxicating source of wisdom. Like, the problem with these YouTube comments is the advice is like often too compelling. It's like there's some like surface level comments, but I've never seen a comment section on YouTube that's like actually more invested and smarter, and like people going through actual stuff and not AI slop and whatnot. And so it's like there's all these sources of information, so many sources of information, and it's easy, and it's kind of a form of procrastination, I think, to read all of this all the time. It feels much more productive than it is because I keep thinking like, oh, what piece of information will have like the secret to unlocking everything in it? Or yeah, what if there's some piece of information that changes it all? And the real secret seems to be just thinking more and not constantly consuming information. Like, information is not the bottleneck. We have so much information. The real bottleneck is like, I have to, if I want to think logically, yeah, read maybe the guide on it and less wrong, but really like sit down and actually use my brain really hard to think about it. I'm too in the absorb information, regurgitate mode. And there I go again, like criticizing my own thought process as not being optimal enough, which is really weird, and I'm holding it to some imaginary ideal that might not even exist. I don't know, man. I see why professors are like kind of weird now. Like, I'm obviously not anywhere near a PhD, but I can see by the time, if I did a PhD, I reached a PhD, my brainscape would be so transformed. And yeah, I think that's honestly like the case with some mathematicians and stuff that are like really the really good mathematicians have maybe internalized logical thinking early on and then incorporated it into like every element of their lives, and then that's why it's like kind of awkward and weird for them to talk to normal people, because like the brainscapes are just actually quite different, because you can kind of change the whole way your mind thinks, and then it's very unrelatable how other people think about the world. But I don't know. Yeah, I'll catch you next time. This video is getting too long. I don't want to generate 2 ad revenue segments, because that would just be despicable capitalism. All right.